I also mentioned to you that in case you had anything that you wanted to discuss, so we will take advantage of 8 to 10:30 or something like that to actually do that. So I wanted to show you after having looked at by now our famous framework for actually doing the analysis in terms of macroeconomic and linking it to the extent that we could based on the data that we had on Nigeria. So just wanted to show you that one of your own documents, which I've looked at myself and found quite relevant, just to highlight a few things there. So it's pretty much topical, because it was produced around April, and I'm talking about Article 4. How many of you have read your own article? Obviously, yeah. You have? Yeah?
I think 4.
I am a reading number. It's an IMF document. They normally, well, it's basically taking into account your own data. They come and have, depending on the complexity, so let's say plus 2 weeks of analysis. It's a regular thing that they do everywhere, every member country.
They move around relevant ministries and
Yes.
even the National Assembly.
Yes. It's a long, I mean, if you, I'm going to put a copy on that website, which they're waiting for me to finish everything then. So in case some of you have actually gone there, maybe it's not available, but then they haven't contacted me yet, so I will have to give them the final versions of everything we've covered, and then they're going to do it. Because the one that you've been given was initial, but I might have changed it when I'm doing it here. So I will ensure that there is a copy there, but it's easily available. It's your own copy. But the reason why I'm using it, because it's relevant for what we're doing here, and it's also going to be relevant later when we move on to, for example, issues regarding sectoral analysis, but equally important on the DSA. The IMF, together with you, and it's a tripartite exercise. You will see that in the article in the annex, if you happen to look at one before you come back for. They don't publish it in public without having given the government the opportunity to look at it, comment on it, and in case the clarification is satisfactory, then they would normally adjust what's needed there. So it's a basically joint program, joint assessment. But they are quite honest in terms of what they see. So it would be nice to see, for example, in terms of your own analysis and the quality and the level of analysis that they do. So you okay with that? So I'm not going to go the whole document. That's about 88 pages, so we'll never finish. I'm just going to pick the main bits. So let me start. Obviously, there's a lot of statistics. Before I move on away from that page, you can see here, to some extent, just to put everything that we covered in 1 week, in the 5 days, in context. Look at what even the IMF has done here, because they recognize that when they come to Nigeria or any country, they will have to look at the macro picture. So, and like Mr. Nasir was mentioning, they go around, they look for all the angles. So they're looking at the economy, but they don't obviously just look at the statistics you've given them, but they want to know what's behind the statistics and try to understand whether those statistics are actually reflecting what they are listening or not. Or sometimes if they're not satisfied with a set of data, they will actually look at it. To some extent, that's your job as well, because when you're getting the information, it doesn't mean that whatever this report has come to you and you're supposed to review and give it to your members, basically the members of the National Assembly. You're not just going to say, well, this is what I've got, so this is what I'm going to use. No. If you need more information, you need to supplement it, you go ahead. Because you're already in Nigeria, you should be able to get that information. And I do hope that by the fact that we have been looking at this analysis on a wider basis, so the macro, like you can see, so you should not hesitate. Even if you're doing a DSA report, if it's an MTech report, but if you find that there's something there which could supplement you in terms of maybe some additional information, you just go and get it, okay? And that's what the IMF is doing. But also I wanted to look at, is that this one? Yeah, that's the one. Look how it has started here. And immediately when you look at the statistic, not the content really, but the way they put it here, it starts with what? Our usual account of national income, okay? You see that? The national income. Oh, it's a bit further down. No, I'm just going to try to see where it's different. That we've been using ourselves. So it's not something that I was just creating to give it to you because I just thought this is what it is, but it is something which is used in practice. And you can see what they've done here, a summary table, but in one table what they've done, they've looked at your 4 accounts. National income and prices, real GDP, blah, blah, blah. So I'm not looking at the content at the moment, look at the organization, how they've managed to get the information in one page, so that when they're showing it to their boss, sometimes a summary is very good because your manager or your head of the committee, whatever, sometimes you just give them a snapshot. And snapshot is always good. Then you can go into the details. When they are interested, then you can give them. So look at this test. And this is selective economic and financial indicators 2014-2017. And you see national income, government operations, that's our second account, right? Real economy, money and credit, which I mentioned to you. Just don't ignore it because this is something also important. And they put some few indicators there, and those definition we saw it yesterday. Still remember them? Yeah, net foreign asset, net domestic asset, broad money, etc. And then they've gone to the external sector. So all your 4 accounts that we've seen, which comprise the whole basically macro setup, is actually provided here. So it's nothing. So I do hope that for you can understand now, appreciate why I was spending or sometimes coming back and thinking, because that's basically once you get a good grasp of how this economy, your economy is organized around those 4 accounts, you should not find it difficult to understand. And the linkages is most important. It's not because they are 4 accounts separated, they're so linked together in terms of what the monetary policy, fiscal policy, etc. So that's one point. And like I said, if you have time later, you can look at the document. But it's topical, it's relevant, and as I said, it's not an old document of 1993, whatever. It's done recently this year. So there would be some, obviously recent events would have probably need to be updated, but it's still, when I was reading it, it gives me good information in terms of what is happening and in terms of going forward, etc. So that's number one. Before we go into that, so the other thing I wanted to show you is you might recognize that at the end. If I can find it now, that's it. That was quite interesting because again, from somebody who's not here, they have actually put that. You must recognize those names, right? Your executive director. And one of the assistants, I suspect they are based in Washington, but they would have been asked through the blessing of the government to make that statement. And again, without going to read the whole thing, but it's quite interesting because it gives a good summary of recent economic development and outlook that you always start everywhere when you're starting to analyze something. Talk about the contents, the outlook, the current situation and the outlook. But I was more interested in talking about the macroeconomic policies and reforms, which they put here, which is quite interesting to see, for example, how those bits and pieces that we've been speaking about, they have actually mentioned it here. Obviously, we know that because we saw a little bit of that yesterday in another document. The economy is confronting substantial challenges. The authorities are implementing policy measures to address the drop in revenue and to revamp the economy, etc. Then it talks about the fiscal policy, which should not be that different from the previous document. Because otherwise, you can't assume that you can't accept that there will be inconsistency between different reports. Whoever is writing it, they're writing it from on government behalf, you know. So if you find this different, then like yesterday I was mentioning to you, the central bank is going sideways with what the government is thinking, then there's definitely a problem. So here, whatever we are saying here is exactly what you've read and exactly what you've seen in your budget, whatever you've seen in your review, exactly what you've seen in that strategy paper that I mentioned, etc., etc. Except sometimes the data could be more up to date or less up to date, depending on when the analysis was done. Because analysis, you keep updating whatever information you're getting. So it's the same thing here, and you could see what they're doing. What is the fiscal policy here? Is try to pursue this prudent fiscal policy within the reality. Because we remember there were some challenges. It wasn't possible to do everything at the same time. But that's what they're talking about doing it, you know. Obviously, if you read it here, you're going to see that your budget review, which was which day was it? May, June, the midterm review. So the midterm review would not say what it's saying here, but this one was done around April. So they might have written the report around March, something like that. So they're talking about the 2016 budget proposals. It tells you that, but maybe some of the things might have changed a little bit between those times. They are reviewing the 2016 budget that was issued late last year, and etc., etc. And they're talking about what they want to do. So, and I thought that was quite good. One paragraph that tells you exactly what the government is trying to do in terms of making an effort to enhance capital expenditure and trying to. That's I like. You see there? Remember we were talking about that yesterday? It's not only about in terms of increasing the tax, but getting better in collection. So look at the chart. Make quite a few things here. Every word has a meaning here. Improvement in tax compliance, because sometimes there are misunderstanding and etc. So trying to make everybody understand that how you should be able to comply with the tax requirement. So you're not there was an informal conversation during the lunch break. I think some of you were not even understanding that you needed to fill in your form. So maybe the public also don't realize that as a duty of every household individual to pay tax, you know. So there is some misunderstanding there. So compliance, broadening the tax base, which is always important, how to broaden it, not overdo it, but broaden it in the right way, but also then closing loopholes, because a lot of times you see that they haven't mentioned specifically the improvement of in terms of the leakages, but I think when you take all that into account, so essentially that's what he's talking about. How to ensure that there is better collection on your tax, rather than saying we're going to increase the tax. Like the example you were mentioning yesterday about the idea once mooted here about increasing your consumption tax, right? The VAT, your VAT. So you see here they're talking about VAT here. Authorities are also seriously considering increasing the VAT. Here it is. Over the medium term, as mentioned earlier, enhanced capital expenditure is aimed at propelling growth to significantly narrow the gap in infrastructure spending going forward. So the government is still intent in using its capital expenditure program, like we saw a little bit yesterday again in that fiscal strategy paper. So there is, you see, that's the analysis. I'm not doing the analysis today. I'm just showing you that the consistency in terms of the analysis. And therefore, when you are doing it, so it can't be that different yourself. Where you are, your job is in a way is to try to see whether what the information has been provided is there anything you can tell your parliamentarians to highlight in terms of making it better, in terms of going back to basics, you know. So you're not necessarily just saying yes sir, yes madam, I like the report, or you're not summarizing the report. You are summarizing, but at the same time you're reviewing, and the word is critically reviewing. And you understand what critically means. So you're looking at it with a fresh pair of eyes, and you're saying that, so checking it. I don't know, it doesn't say from which period, it's over the period, so I suspect it's from since June 2015, right? Since June 2015 to recently, they have made monetary policy more accommodative. Then they have reacted around March 2016 in order to move it up again. In order to so you can see it. So there has been, so the central bank is not sitting there, it's just reacting. Okay? So in one paragraph you're saying two policies. One policy expansionary, one policy is making it more restrictive. And there is okay, blah blah blah. So and then obviously to the basis point, etc. etc. Monetary policy. The Monetary Policy Committee, in the same way that we have it in the UK, also continues efforts to convince decision transparency to gauge market expectation. This is what you were telling me yesterday. It's all published. In 2016, the committee expected to move through greater collaboration with fiscal authorities. Okay, so they are aware that probably it's still not yet there. They are collaborating, but they want to do better collaboration between fiscal policy and monetary policy. Again, that makes sense. The discussion yesterday and over the week, right? You need that coordination because you're going to the same market. You're intervening on the same market. You're talking with the same commercial banks and other actors, private sector. So you have to talk to them. And by communicating more frequently with the relevant players, including the media, academics, and trade unions. That's very important. I mean, sometimes when we talk about, we say, okay, when in my short presentation about the role of Parliament and oversight role, you're going to see, I mean, this oversight function. Parliament is key, but there are so many other entities that are involved now in oversight. And increasingly, it's not only the donors, but countries themselves are realizing that these old days where everything was like behind closed doors or whatever doesn't work. Because the more doubt you sow in the public's mind, the less difficult it is for you to convince them that you're serious about what you're doing. So now you will see that communication strategy is something which is well in the books of the government. You will see that. Sometimes they even have, they instruct their communication, so wherever it is sitting, to actually develop a strategy. So it's about how to communicate. Sometimes you don't like that information to go too quickly. You don't like the media probably saying too bad things. And I remember that I mentioned to you about a story when I was working closely with the authorities here. We used some donor money just to train the media because they were not understanding. The financial journalists, especially, these are specialized. I mean, they are good journalists. They write well, but then the content they were always criticizing it. So it was about educating them. I think there were about 300 people focused on that. There's quite a bit of money. We brought them somewhere, Kaduna and some other places, Lagos, and then trained them just to make them understand the basics of the financing and the debt and what it means. So next time when you see something happening, just not report it on it. Okay, we don't mind. The government says we don't mind you evaluating it and then making your opinion known. But what we don't want, the first paragraph, without even understanding, you're criticizing. So constructive criticism is acceptable, but not necessarily just saying everything is bad when it comes to policy.
Yes.
So that's what they're talking about here. Better communication with the media, the academics, obviously. And academics, why? Because they are the one that are doing further analysis. In addition to what you're doing, that's another area where you might be interested to have a look. Because Nigeria's academics, they are quite healthy in terms of producing documents, sometimes for PhD students or whatever, but just research. Because one of their jobs there is, I think in the academia, when I was involved at one point with them, there's a ratio of text. And this is something, a document, your own document, where they're talking the language. So nothing difficult in terms of, you can make the link yourself now, in terms of what we have been able to discuss conceptually, sometimes too theoretical, but hopefully you're able to appreciate now these are applicable or already being applied to the Nigerian context, etc. So what is this infrastructure? We're going to look at that a little bit more, and we are probably saying what we know. Infrastructure, particularly energy, power, transportation, need to improve to support industry. Everybody knows that. Prioritization of projects and development strategy, complementary. PPP, completed some feasibility studies, authorities. M&E, you remember that? You say this is really important now in government to assess projects. To some extent, your own mapping that you mentioned is some form of verification that you're doing. Assessment to enhance transparency and making confidence in government. Okay, you've got an idea. This is just was a presentation that was made by around that report, and it's the challenges, which you can read yourself, and some policy recommendations. So everything. So after having done the context, they're talking about what type of situation is Nigeria facing, and then it always ends up. It doesn't necessarily need to have recommendation, but in your case, when they're doing your review, I think your boss, your parliamentarians expect you to give them some ideas about what to say, what are the things to highlight, you know. So it could be recommendations or points that need to be re-emphasized. So it doesn't mean to be a recommendation in terms of for reform, no, but it could be just points that they need to highlight or draw attention to. That could be something. I'm putting my hat as if in terms of what this conversation between you and the parliamentarian would be, because that's what they want. They want something to, they don't just want to review it in a mechanical way. They want the review to be constructive, but also something that they need to highlight that maybe something could be done a bit better. So here, of course, IMF will always give you some recommendations which the government would have accepted. What are they saying here? Safeguarding fiscal sustainability. This makes sense to you. Reducing external imbalances, including real exchange rate realignment, enhancing resilience and further improving the efficiency of the banking sector. And then fourthly, implementing structural reform for sustained and inclusive growth. Well, that's so wide, it doesn't say much to me. Oh, yeah. So maybe when you go look into the details, that's when you find it. But this is really, but maybe that's deliberately they do it that way. Then allow. I was just wanted to talk to you about the macro. That's their background. They will go and explain it a little bit. And what did I tell you? How did we done here has a meaning, and it does work. It does. It's pretty useful tool that you've been able to get exposed to in a sort of formal way. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Okay. You got a question? Yeah. No problem.
It's about the Nigerian economy.
Yeah.
Of course, it has been said by 2 years ago or yesterday. The NBS published it that now officially Nigeria is in recession. Also, the first quarter we recorded a negative, something in the second quarter. Now, what I'm looking at is this. If you observe, you will see that some sectors, like the agric, is picking up. Agric, I think solid growth and some other aspects are picking up. Is it that their contribution is not as much as those that fell that make it to the negative or?
Well, it's I mean, there are two things here. One is if you look at we haven't looked at this document here, but you need to look at the latest one. But when you look at your GDP by production method, you know, the Isaac grouping that I gave you, right? What you're saying here is every sector there would have contributed. But what you need to go and check now is, like you're saying, so I suspect you checked it before asking me that question, is that some sector will be growing. There's no doubt about it. Some sector will be growing, some sector will not be growing. But the impact in general, because it has not. So in net terms, you know, that is what has brought it down. And which to some extent would still explain to you that the structural problem that Nigeria is facing in terms of its, that the economy is still reliant on those main items. And the impact of the oil, etc. is still dragging the economy down, notwithstanding the fact that some sectors are growing. So it doesn't mean that every sector, it never happens like that. That would really be disastrous if you just look at your GDP and you find that no sector is contributing. No, it doesn't. So it's a relative thing. So in net terms. So, but you're right now, the second point you're talking about in terms of its contribution. Now, what can you do? I mean, that's a long-term plan here. The government want to keep improving and keep diversifying, keep creating greater value added from the other sectors where probably the risk of the other challenges that you're facing are a bit less acute. But that will take time. So that is where probably, apart from firefighting, because there is a challenge here, like you're saying, there's a recession. So as quickly as possible, the government has to take action in order to try to boost the economy back to, make it back to where it is. But at the same time, maybe there are those policies that probably are not so prominent, need to be accelerated in terms of boosting those sectors. That's the only way you can do that. So if you think that not enough is being done in terms of boosting some of those sectors, right, you need to boost it. And this, hopefully, we should be able to discuss that when we talk about sectoral policies. Because the government is aware, it's not happening. I mean, generally, from a public financial management point of view, from a governance point of view, from an accountability point of view, clearly, the role, the way that, I mean, I've been coming here from like 205, so I can say a little bit. Sometimes when you're coming from outside, you know, and you don't see. It's a bit like when you don't visit your parents' place. You see the changes. While somebody who goes every day don't see it. So I'm giving my perspective from that point of view. When you look at the way government has evolved, you could see that the fact that in your case, now you have a NABRO, you have obviously all your committees, you have a lot of committees doing those work. And I have had the privilege to talk to some of those committees, or at least get their reactions in terms of what the work that was being done in terms of financial management, debt management, and even subnational, going to the states, etc., and how to bring the development from here to there, etc., etc. Fiscal responsibility legislation from central to state level fiscal responsibility, etc., etc. So based on that, what I can say that is, you could see that the awareness in terms of improving oversight is important. And yesterday also, not yesterday, I think 2 days ago, when we were talking about the public financial management, it's at the core of the public financial management. You will see that they have a section in terms of the guidebook talking about how do you, on one side, improve Parliament role in terms of oversight, and on the other side, how do we improve the role of NGOs and civil society in terms of that. So I will just give you my take on it. So few pointers about the role of Parliament. Introduce basic concept of oversight a bit more widely, but specifically the role of the legislation playing that function. So while you are on a day-to-day basis you are doing it, I'm just talking about the global context. And maybe there will be something that may come out. I mean, this is, you're doing, your boss probably, your committees that you work. Do you report to one committee, or do you report to all parts? Whoever comes to you, how does it work in practice, in your case, NAMBO?
NAMBO's case is actually special because the underlying assumption is we can report to all committees of Parliament, but in most cases, because let me put it in perspective. When you look at the responsibility of certain committees as enshrined in the House rules or the Senate rules, some of their functions, kind of serve as our own mandate. So certain reports we can, report to certain specific committees. But in most cases, like those policy documents that I, kind of talk to you about, 3 other documents, we report to the entire legislature. We do our analysis and we share them with each and every member of the legislature. So all members of committees in the Senate, all members of committees in the House have access, and they are free to call us and to take us up on, kind of our presentations. But there may be few, you see, the National Assembly is not really as developed as what you see in the US. If you begin to compartmentalize and report only to certain committees, you run into problems. Because legislators see themselves as first among equals, and why are you? There was, for instance, a write-up we did looking at the government intervention in, kind of poverty-related issues in 2015 budget. A provision of 500 billion was there for, kind of poverty reduction. And we did an analysis, like looking at a review of previous, kind of intervention projects and where they had issues. Under normal circumstances, you expect us to just leave it within the poverty, committee. But if you do that again, you won't have the buy-in of the entire members. By the time members of the kind of committees had to lay it or take a part of it and use it in the kind of daily deliberations in the chambers. So for NABRU, that's why you see those documents you see are the three critical kind of key documents, and each and every member, be he in the Senate or House, is entitled to access such. Yeah. But there was an intervention. I think I identified 2 or 3 staff here who sat in when the Joint Committee on Legislative Budget and Research and Poverty Alleviation Committee in the House invited the agency responsible for kind of those interventions. And our responsibility then was just to sit in, you understand, get the same reports that the committees will get, and then later help the committees synthesize, kind of issues, and then help them prepare their reports also to the parliament here. So that is the format for now, pending maybe the passage of our final legislation. Because as I told you, the independence of NABRU is hinged on that assumption that we can determine what to study, what to look at, and report. Because you cannot sit on your own and decide on what to look at, and people out there are determining what you do. If you want to do this, they said no, then you've lost your independence. So in a nutshell, that is it.
Thank you for that. I mean, that's to some extent, the bit that you're talking about, the legislation coming in, and for example, you are able to actually analyze based on your own. That also quite useful in a way. It's a fine balance in a way. But there's a demand, there's a priority, but at the same time also, from your point of view, you're analyzing. So well, this requires to be reviewed and therefore and mentioned to your stakeholders. That's very good. Okay, like I said,
You understand?
Excuse me, can you repeat?
Yeah. There are situations in which you find civil society organizations or coalitions working in budget, coalitions working in environment, coalitions, are just made members of, kind of certain committees who are involved in this sense as a sort of validation to say, oh, we've had civil society. You understand? Instead of leaving it open for, kind of people. But sometimes the parliament does mainly open them.
Yeah.
There's public hearing or whatever they leave it open. They invite everybody. They just don't pinpoint.
Yeah.
But what you find from the executive side now is that certain identified civil society organizations are actually made members of committees.
All right. No, I've seen that. I know. So you're saying that what's the implication of that?
Yeah.
Well, I think the reason why it's been done this way, obviously, what leads to us is that this membership, is it permanent? Is it on a rotating basis? On what basis are they being represented there? Are they being represented on their own, or is it being like consensus? Because in some countries, what happens, the civil society also are organized. They have their own, apart from the fact they have their own whatever charities or whatever the area, they also have a sort of a mini informal, sometimes formal organization. So normally you approach them and say, I want one of your members. And then they approach. So the first thing to find out is how were they nominated. That's number one. Number two is that like any member, member being nominated, it's not finite, it's not permanent. Is it for a year? Is it going to be on a rotation basis, etc.? So I see what you're saying, because if it is they're doing it because this is more in favor of that particular department, then it defies the whole purpose. So I think these should be the two questions asked. How come the decision-making process was taking place? If, for example, there is consensus among the civil society that this person is going to represent our views, and then he's going to take it, or she's going to take it and bring it to there, that's fine. And then the second one is the degree of rotation, so that in case that one person doesn't become a permanent fixture. Because government themselves change their members, right? Yeah. But it is for practical purpose, because you can't have open hearing every time, so that's why they nominate you. Just again to tell you where the legislative sits, right? Planning, in case we talk about this PFM, budgetary accountability. planning, MTF, etc., budget approval, you know who's approving it, service delivery, budget control, year-end accounts, annual audit, auditor general reports, legislature engage scrutinizes the report, and then follow up. So that's another, just wanted to share with you, another cycle in terms of the PFM, Public Financial Management. That's what we see, the approval and then scrutiny. You know, so you give them the mandate, but then how that works. You can't avoid those because sometimes you have to take into account, because these are specialists. Their job is to actually do that. So apart from analyzing the report that what the NAPRO is doing, but these particular Auditor General, National Audit Office, and then sometimes there's a legislature, scrutiny committee, public account committee that we just mentioned. These major players, they would be doing some work here in terms of PFM. And this is one slide about related a bit to the audit, you know, legislation. A report on overall government accounts and on individual public departments, entities are lodged by accountant generals, national audit. I'm talking more about a UK model type. Parliament is final authority on disbursement of public funds, public accountability, tax raising powers, etc. Most legislation delegates scrutiny power to committee, which reports back periodically to the full body. You should recognize that because I'm reports, they should be exact yours. This scrutiny committee normally has wide-ranging powers, examine the substance of audit reports, summons civil servants, sometimes minister responsible for establishing the scrutiny, take evidence from independent experts, which we will talk about hearing, etc. So this is our Anglophone model. I just replicated here. I've used that for some other training. I'll just put it here just to tell you that. So you can see here what happens in terms of reports, recommendations, follow-up, scrutiny, and the level of scrutiny. We're just highlighting, because when somebody talks about scrutiny, you don't go too much into the details, but you're more looking at certain overall thing. Yeah. What you don't look at. Parliamentary scrutiny doesn't normally look at specific allegations of fraud, detailed recommendations, detailed evidence of accountable performance, etc. This one I just wanted to show you that in many countries they have all this process, but there was this review done by DFID, by the UK, and what they saw that is that frequently the audit, the sovereign audit institution, may do little more than send its annual report to Parliament. There is commonly little communication about its content, the lines of investigation to pursue, or the means of following up the findings. So they did a review to find out, but I do hope that this is not happening in Nigeria, because here you have to act upon it. But I just wanted to show you. It's very nice to have rules. The same way that people make law. Everybody's excited about the new legislation, but then when it's implemented, nobody's taking attention. Then you say, but what was the whole idea of putting a law, but then it's not being implemented?
That is why in the Parliament now, I think from the Senate Assembly, we had the compliance committees, additional committees to check compliance of some of these things. Because sometimes when you look at the responsibility of the Public Accounts Committee, it's so big. You know, they are one of the few committees that actually it's on a daily basis. You know, whether it's a studio or whatever, it's like the kind of committee with, or you look at the kind of audit queries that comes in, you know, from the journals, but they cannot afford to operate like other committees. Who, the moment there's plenary, you wait till after plenary before you meet. So Public Accounts Committee, you know, seems to be one of the most functional committees in National Assembly. But sometimes you generate reports, you take them out there, the Parliament realize that they may need a compliance committee also to follow up, to make sure that some of those things, you know, kind of are actually taken up and implemented by the executive.
Which, yes.
So, parliamentary scrutiny does not normally look at specific allegations of fraud or corruption.
Yeah, well, the idea in the UK and Anglophone is that, that's the job, like forensic. you know, if the fraud is, how can I explain that? I mean, obviously if it's so obvious, but you're not reporting to them to look at those type of fraud, but there are other agencies that are actually doing that. You know, they are more looking at oversight. They're looking at, for example, whether you have some compliance you're doing. They tell you clearly that systems improvement or accounting operational errors, if there was mistakes, whatever. That's not their job, basically. If it happens that there is a corruption issue, and obviously that's going to be raised in the committee, somebody is going to come and talk to you. But their job is not to find out the culprit in terms of corruption, in terms of fraud, etc. That's not their job. They haven't been settled there. But it may happen, inevitably, but how can you stop a parliamentary reform raising questions? It has been found already. So then they will ask you. But they are not doing the scrutiny with that in mind. They're more looking at their oversight. That's what they're talking about, not mistake. Sometimes you can make the committees more powerful, too powerful for its own good. But they are supposed they have to see that it's been working. Like for example, the second one, detailed recommendation on systems improvement. But that's a different issue at all. I mean, they are not going to look at that. The third one is about analysis of accounting operational errors, etc. I mean, this is because the audit may come up with those ideas, and that's normally what. Normally, if you consider how an audit works, the internal audit or external audit, whatever, the first thing is they approach you yourself internally, and if there are mistakes, there are some procedural things that haven't worked, they will send it to you, and then you will correct it. I mean, you know, and that could be a lesson learned, because remember, audit and supervision are two different things. Monitoring, evaluation or monitoring and compliance or whatever. This is more about trying to see whether you are doing your job correctly as you move on. While audit is ex post, something has already happened. Internal audit, external audit, both of them, they come in afterwards. So then when they come, they might say, okay, oh, you haven't complied with the strategy. You haven't complied, this analysis hasn't been done. And sometimes internal audit can even go to the external and say, well, some procedures, some statistics, some data is not correct. I remember when we were working in one country where it went even to like some payments were not done correctly. So they raise that issue. And then they normally don't take everything in samples, but then if they find it, then they will report it. So they can send it to the department, but that's the first port of call. But when you talk about the external audit report, etc., the same thing happens here. There are a number of sections, but there are some of them are more operational, and some of them are more institutional. So Parliament is not going to get involved into the internal reform of that organization, because somebody else is going to do that. But if there is an element of fraud, everybody is interested. I mean, fraud is quite difficult. Even though you're saying you're not going to be looking, you're not looking for it. But if it is something that so obvious, the newspaper is talking about it, obviously Parliament is going to talk about that. Okay, so that's and the way to interpret that is to look at to assume that if I was not getting anything from outside, my level of saving should always be equal to my level of investment. S is equal to I. But usually what happens is that S is not equal to I, sometimes I is greater than S. Why? Because you're getting something from outside. So that's where the import minus export. So the more capital flows you get from outside, in the form of grants, in the form of foreign direct investment, in the form of any other flows, but also borrowing. You're going to borrow from outside, so that becomes like an inflow. Right? So when we talk about foreign direct investment, that can come in as foreign investment. So suddenly now your investment is greater than your domestic savings. But similarly, some of the saving could go out also, but we're not talking about that. But this is usually how it works. So with all those identities then, obviously the other thing to consider is that think that price move very quickly. So the analysis that we make is, we always like to consider analysis in real terms rather than in nominal terms. The other concept that you need to find out when you talk about the accounts is whether the data is in nominal or is constant term. So constant means, so you have to use a deflator. either a GDP deflator to reduce the GDP figure into constant one. Usually all the figures you see, for example, this morning IMF was talking about growth rate of 7.8% or etc. That was not in nominal terms, that was in constant terms. So they have taken out the price, so GDP deflated. So then they will tell you in nominal terms the economy has grown. In real terms, the economy has grown by 7.8%. And related to all those accounts now, so you have two things: wages, employment, etc. The most important one that we did ourselves was inflation. So we spoke about how inflation is there. So it's measured usually by CPI, the consumer price index. So and it affects quite a number of things. Then you can move from that real sector account, then you can move from the to the government account. The government account is pretty straightforward. So how much money it has, how much money it needs, how much money it can borrow. So you have your revenue on one side, revenue per grants, then your expenditure, the current expenditure, capital expenditure, and within the expenditure you can have whether you have how much current transfers or pension benefits, etc. Basically, government is taking tax from you and then they are distributing it in the form of some pension, some form of benefits, just to give support, income support or whatever it's called. That's what we call transfer from the well-off to the less well-off. And then obviously that's the government account. There's the financing, there's all these type of implications. Then you move on to the external sector, which is the balance of payment. Those four accounts we're talking about: the trade account, the current account, the capital financial account, and the overall balance of payment. So that's one account. And then you finally come to the monetary account. And the monetary account is more about money supply. So demand for money is equal to supply for money. And how do you actually look at that? So you look at the monetary survey. Their cost of money is interest. So you can have nominal interest rate, which is what you know, but sometimes you have to look at real interest rate, like I explained yesterday. In case there is a high inflation in your country, so if somebody tells you your rate of interest is 10%, then you need to look at the real rate of interest. If inflation is low, then you know it's not affecting you. But if the inflation is very high, then it's always good to look at the real rate of interest. And the way to calculate the rate of interest is to take the nominal rate of interest minus, because both are percentage, right? So you are able to reduce it. So if your rate of interest is 10%, if your rate of inflation is 7%, then your real rate of interest is 10 minus 7, so 3%. And that's your real rate of interest. That's it. So then you can use link to the monetary, link to all that. There is what we call to the external sector is the exchange rate. So always it's exchange rate is important. So all along I've explained to you these accounts. What you are finding then is there are policy instruments. So fiscal policy, monetary policy, exchange rate policy, tech policy, trade policy, all those are policies. But the main policy we've looked at ourselves is fiscal policy, monetary policy, and then obviously a little bit of exchange rate policy. But you could have any other policy which are related.
Sorry, sir. The real interest rate, you said, is nominal rate of interest minus inflation.
Rate.
Inflation rate.
So, and we remember always that when you talk about inflation and the like, when you talk about CPI, this is an index. So I'm not talking about minus the index here, minus the rate of inflation. And the rate of inflation is already in percentage. So you technically, statistically, you can minus a percentage from a percentage. So that's why I'm telling you inflation, not CPI. So inflation, which is percent minus, interest rate, which is percent minus inflation, and you get your real rate of interest. But usually you won't use that, except if interest rate is if your inflation is high. And like I said, the policies and all these ingredients, then it's a question of how they move along. So that's basically what we're talking about here.
Excuse me, sir?
Yeah.
Has there been any economy in history that is in recession due to over-dependence on one commodity. That's what is happening in Nigeria.
Oh, wait. Plenty of countries. Plenty. Well, many countries have always, I mean, in their history, they've always been countries that have focused. Obviously, with oil, it makes it a little bit more complicated, but there's plenty of countries. I mean, even in the agricultural sector, you will find that some countries are solely reliant on one commodity like cocoa or sugar or what the Comoros do.
Coffee.
Coffee, yes. Well, the export of cocoa.
Great.
Again, there they don't produce the final product. They're just selling the ingredients. But that's what I mean. So the ingredient of coffee, tea, or the cocoa that makes that chocolate. You know.
Or cotton. Cotton.
Cotton also, yeah. But in the old days, they have cotton, etc. So, but and then you have to look at what did they do. A lot of those countries have moved along. I look at, for example, Mauritius in the 1970s, they were 90% of the country was producing sugar. Now, if you look at it, barely 1% or 2%, or let's say 5% of the land is actually used of the sugar. What they've done is that they've improved productivity, so less production, less acreage, but better productivity. So which means, and then they have improved the quality, that extraction of sugar. So that quality of sugar cane produces more sugar. So they're able to maintain their 400,000 ton or whatever sugar. But what they've done then, they've improved the services industry, the tourism industry, the manufacturing industry, the export processing, etc. So diversification has taken place.
And now this morning, traditional and herbal medicine. This morning I saw in the reality that Mauritius is